We all know how tough it can be to collect supervision hours. That's why my friend and fellow therapist Rachel created Motivo, making clinical supervision easy and accessible. With over 1,200 vetted supervisors nationwide, I know you'll be able to find a supervisor that's right for you. Get started today at motivohealth.com/Joe. That's MOTIVO health.com/Joe. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1217. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I am so excited to have you here today. We help you build a thriving private practice that you absolutely love. We want that side of thriving, of doing well, of, having good operations and marketing and systems. But we also want you to love it. There's so many ways in the world to make money. We want you to go after the things that you're excited about, the impact you want to make, and to be able to say, I can't believe this is my practice. So we do that all the time in our membership communities. We do that in our consulting. We do it through this podcast. You're going to be noticing we're shifting a little bit of how we're doing the scheduling with the podcast. In the past, we would do a series and it would be like 3 weeks in a row on marketing or 3 weeks in a row on just like better brains. We'd have a bunch of amazing speakers in. We're shifting it a little bit because we want to have, say, like Mondays be a theme and Tuesdays be a theme, Wednesdays be a theme, and then have that series go for, 8 to 12 weeks. That makes it that, if you're not into a certain series, you aren't just lost for a month or two. And so you'll notice that this high performance mindset series that's coming out, we have some amazing people. I mean, when I look ahead at this schedule of people that I've already interviewed, let's just take like Akshay Nanavati. Akshay and I talked yesterday. This is going to go live in a couple weeks. He recently tried to go across Antarctica on skis and got 500 miles in, wasn't able to, but he wrote a book about it and wrote a book about some of his approaches. And the Dalai Lama has said, this is a book worth reading. So we're finding these just amazing people who have done really amazing things. But as I talk to them, they're just regular people that think through the world, that want to make an impact, and that we can learn some lessons from for our own individual lives and for our businesses. Which brings me to Jason Selk. Jason is with us today, and he was serving as the director of sports psychology for the St. Louis Cardinals. Dr. Selk helped the team win their first World Series in over 20 years. And in 2011, he assisted the Cardinals in the historic feat of winning their second World Championship in a 6-year period. Over the last 20 years, Dr. Selk has written 5 best-selling books and has become widely acclaimed as one of the most sought-after keynote speakers in the country. Dr. Selk captivates audiences with simple messages combining science and real-life success stories, teaching audiences the most up-to-date and effective models of winning at the highest level. Jason, welcome to the Practice podcast.
Joe, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh man, this is awesome. Well, I got to start with World Series. Like, what is it like to be there with people you've been working with and have them win the World Series?
It's really the right question to be asking, but you're probably not going to love the response. But I think it's a really important story to hear. I'm going to kind of tell you a story of my experience. So 2006, it's my first year with the team. The team hadn't won a World Series in 24 years. And we're in the World Series. We're heavy underdogs all the way through. In fact, we still, to this day, we are the lowest win total regular season team to ever win a World Series. We had no business winning that World Series. Okay, but a lot of things came together for us. We ended up beating the Detroit Tigers in 5 games. Game 4, I'm down at the stadium watching the game, and they put me in between the former mayor and the current mayor. And during the game, these 2 politicians were telling me all game long how I needed to be doing my job, and it was a nightmare. I mean, the only good thing was we won the game. And I could tell that we were in really good shape to win the series because Detroit wasn't handling the pressure. I think they had 8 errors in the 5 games. It really helped us win the games as much as we won those games. Anyway, game 5, I decided to watch the game at my home in St. Louis. And at the time it was 2006, I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and an 8-month-old. And the whole family
were full
in the master bedroom on the bed. I think game time is 7:10 p.m. By 8 o'clock, everybody's asleep. Anyway, the Cardinals go on. We win game five. We win the World Series in 5 games. And this is the part that I think is really important for high performers and people working with high performers. And frankly, anyone trying to be a high performer needs to be sensitive to. I remember we win the game, everybody's asleep, and I just quietly get out of the bed and I walk down to the bathroom and I put my hands on the counter and I look at myself in the mirror. And Joe, I experienced absolutely no joy whatsoever,
Mm.
only relief. And I knew that there was something dramatically wrong. I would have liked to have said, when you asked me about the story, and yeah, I went down to the stadium and we were popping champagne and it was the most enjoyable. But I think it's really easy for people to get so caught up in performance and success that we lose sight of it. And I learned something very, very valuable. And it took me a long time to figure out how to help myself as well as other people. But I feel like I've made great progress on this. But winning without improving health and happiness isn't winning, it's losing. And
Mm.
it may sound somewhat trite, but I would just tell you, somebody that's been there, and that's literally in my field, winning at the highest level, you're supposed to experience joy and improved health and happiness with whatever endeavor you're putting your energy into. And it can be done. That's the most important part. With the right direction and the right work, it can be done.
Winning without health and happiness isn't winning. I love that.
It's losing. Make sure you get the
Oh, is
last,
losing, is losing.
because
That's why I'm reflecting it back so I get it right.
yeah, and most people, that maybe haven't been a part of something like that, maybe like media coverage and something of that nature, might think, come on, you're that's not true. I would think that it was enjoyable. Listen, this is very common. It wasn't me. I was just thankfully in a position where I could recognize it in my own life and then recognize there are a lot of people going to come to me wanting to help winning their equivalent of the World Series. And if I don't know how to teach it to myself, I'm going to be no good helping others. And that's not help. Again, that's losing. So I think it would be remiss of me not to say, okay, then what? What do you have to do? What was the piece of the equation you missed? And I wish it was really simple and really easy, but it's difficult. It's what I call reward and relish. And let me just real quick explain both. And of the two, reward, which people hear about all the time, reward isn't what I found to be the most important part. It was the relish. Okay, now let me explain. I would encourage you to set up a reward system, not for results. See, winning the World Series is supposed to have a natural effect of reward itself. I missed the true reward system should have been on the process or the work required to achieve the desired results. So I would encourage people always have one activity weekly. It's called a process goal. That is your most important activity that will cause success, the success you're looking for. So, for example, my number one process goal is something I call 100% intensity 100% of the time. And it really is, and I know how to measure it. I know it sounds a little bit loose, but it's actually not for me. I don't want to get into the details, so I don't want to take too much time. But it's a very measurable process that every counseling, every coaching session I have, I can measure if my intensity was where it needed to be. And for me, I'm not giving myself permission to be anything less than 100% on those coaching counseling calls. Now, if I can nail that for a week, and I usually tell people if you can just go 90% for the week on that one most important activity, you want to have a reward in place. It could be something as simple as I live in Miami and there's an ice cream shop right down the street. It's a nice little walk, and I can sit outside and watch the circus go by. I give myself permission to go have, I can have 10 scoops of ice cream if I wanted. That's not just at least one. I got to sit there, and I don't even have to eat the whole thing if I don't want to, but I got to go do it. And
Hmm.
that gives me the opportunity to relish. And this is the piece that I've found made the real difference for me and for a lot of other people that I work with. Relish is a 60-second moment of consciousness of the success you're having and the fact that you deserve it. There's no room whatsoever in this relish moment for you being self critical. All that perfectionism and all that garbage that we all like to buy into at times, that doesn't get to be a part of this relish. You don't get to say, yeah, but at all. It's only, let me look at the ways that I'm winning. And I usually look, okay, at my career. What are some of the wins this week in my career? I look at my relationship with my family. I look at my relationship with myself. What are some of the wins that I'm seeing in terms of my own health and in terms of the health of my relationships? And what am I doing to deserve it? Not what am I not doing? Again, there's no room for critical here, but only forcing myself. And it's just a moment, but it's a very important moment of consciousness that once a week I force myself to realize, look, I'm doing some really good things and I'm working at making it happen. And that's a really good thing. And I'll kind of fast forward, give you some closure on this. So I get hired by SMU's football team 2 years ago. I know this previous year we had a really, really great year, but 2 years ago, we had at that point in time, arguably the best year in program history as well. They hadn't won an AAC championship. 2 years ago, they were in the AAC, a very small conference compared to the ACC, where they are now. They hadn't won that conference in 40 years. Well, we ended up winning it last year. It was my first year with the team. And if you look at the comparison of winning a World Series with a Major League team and winning an AAC championship, it's not so comparable. I mean, one is obviously a bit bigger than the other, but I will tell you, when SMU, when we won that AAC, I flipped over a ping pong table. I screamed so loud I lost my voice. I did a shot of tequila. I'm not endorsing drinking or any of that for the celebration. I'm just saying I experienced a pure joy that was almost embarrassing to the people around me. Odd, like, wow, this guy is really losing it. It's not that big of a deal. But you know what? When you work your tail off at something and you do see some results, it is a big deal. And you have to give yourself permission to celebrate the wins. Otherwise, when we do lose, which we will, it'll eat us up.
Mm. I love the relish side of that because I feel like high achievers so often they achieve something and then it's like before they're even almost done with it, they're like, what's the next goal? How do I outdo this? And the goalposts of success continue to move. Was it that World Series moment that made you kind of adjust that, or were there other things that you weren't relishing also?
It was the World Series experience. That no joy but only relief was really eye opening for me. And then, as I started to look into, you're right. The goalpost always moving. You hear the stories of Urban Meyer. He's winning. He wins the national championship at Florida, and the team's still out on the field celebrating, and he's in making recruiting calls for the next year. And you look at that, and there's a level of respect and integrity that goes with that, and almost to a point where we feel like that's how it's supposed to be. And you have to be really cautious of that. And so I was looking for research. I like anecdotal evidence, but I am just purely about research.
Hmm.
And there's this really strong body of research out of Harvard, which I know we can trust those folks. Happy people win more, whether it be in baseball, whether it be in weight loss, whether it be in improving return on investment with sales. It doesn't matter. Happy people win more. And so this whole idea of you want to work yourself to a point and you're not enjoying, you're working so hard, you're almost hurting yourself and you're not really ever celebrating. There's no empirical evidence that that actually causes you to win more. But there is great empirical evidence. And I like, empirical is just a fancy word for real life. I don't care what you can prove on paper or in a lab. I want to know what really works. This research, you cannot argue with it. And it's something, the teams I work with now, Auburn baseball is a great example. We just swept the number 3 team in the country, and the guys were having so much fun doing it. Again, I think people might look at it and be a little bit like, fellas, come on, you're playing a game here. It's supposed to be a little bit more serious. And I tell them just the opposite. Hey, fellas, this is a game. I want you to have as much fun with it as possible. And it runs true to form in research. Happy people win more often.
Mm. It reminds me of the Savannah Bananas, which is a like minor league baseball team, and literally, for this minor league baseball team, the owner, has the guys do choreographed dancing as part of the training before they even get hired on the team, and it's like they do all these things, and it's like for him, it's like, how do we make baseball just this fun, lighthearted thing? And I don't know what their record is, but I imagine that team feels more connected and probably does better and wins more based on this research than if, they were just these struggling minor league players that were just mad at the world.
Well, here might be my only take on that. And I'm old school. I'm a Cedar Rapids, Iowa boy. And so, choreographing, dancing, and so forth is not really in my playbook. I
Yeah,
would say this, again, we know happy people win more often. But if we're putting so much energy into being happy that we're not allowing ourselves the energy necessary to compete at the highest level, that's where I think you got to
sure.
really watch that fine line. Because no doubt about it, to win a World Series, to win an AAC championship, to win at any real extensive level, you must put the preparation in. Doesn't matter how happy you are, if you're not doing the work, that's where we're going to run into trouble. And that's why you want to do reward and relish based on getting the work done. If you're doing the most important work daily, weekly, celebrate, reward, relish.
Love it. As a therapist, I can tell you from experience that having the right EHR is an absolute lifeline. I recommend using therapy notes. They make billing, scheduling, note taking, telehealth, and e-prescribe incredibly easy. Best of all, they offer live telephone support that's available 7 days a week. You don't have to take my word for it. Do your own research and see for yourself. Therapy Notes is the #1 highest rated EHR system available today, with a 4.9 out of 5 stars on trustpilot.com and on Google. All you have to do is click the link below or type promo code Joe on their website over at therapynotes.com and receive a special 2-month trial absolutely free. Again, that's therapynotes.com and use promo code Joe on the website. If you're coming from another EHR, Therapy Notes will also import your demographic data quick and easy at no cost, so you can get started right away. Trust me, don't waste any more of your time and try Therapy Notes. Just use promo code Joe at checkout. Now, you've spoken a ton about kind of the power of focus and achieving peak performance and how athletes like train their minds to maintain focus during stressful moments in the midst of challenging competitions, things like that. Talk more about that power of focus, and then maybe we can extract some ideas that we can pull into the work that we're doing in our counseling world.
Yeah, so you're getting me excited now. Okay,
All
so this
right, good.
is where the rubber hits the road, in my opinion. Now, let me say, I'm going to try to be succinct with this. First and foremost, mental toughness, attentional focus. It's not intentional, it's actually called attentional, ATT, but mental toughness or attentional focus. And I would just say attentional focus is focusing on productive thoughts while under pressure. I feel like that's really, if you want to try to summarize what mental toughness is, that's it. Our brains aren't built to do that. Our brains are built to actually focus on the wrong things, to have the wrong or inappropriate attentional focus. For example, there's this thing in our brains called PCT, problem centric thought. It is the biological tendency to focus on the negative. Now, hundreds of years ago, PCT actually was necessary for the advancement or survival of the species. When we lived in a very, very unsafe times, our brains were built this way biologically to keep our species alive, that we're always aware of the potential threats. And not only are we aware of it initially, but our brain circles back to it. Something in our brain called the caudate. It loops us back. So, think back hundreds of years ago, you're maybe out in the wilderness with your family and you're trying to build a shelter. And you've got a raging river behind you, and you've got lions, tigers, and bears out in front of you. And you and your spouse are trying to put together a shelter for the children. And your brain thinks, okay, I got the raging river. My kids can swim, but they're not great swimmers. So I got to be sensitive to the river. And are there lions, tigers, or bears out there? And all the while, my spouse is maybe bringing wood over, and I'm trying to put the wood together in a way to formulate a shelter. But my brain won't allow itself to only purely focus on building the shelter. So I might, hammer a stick or two into the ground, and then my brain thinks back to the river, lions, tigers, bears. That's that caudate. It forces us to loop. Now, the issue with that is now we live in a very safe time. And although it was really helpful for the survival of the species hundreds of years ago, right now it's very counterproductive for high level performance, because that which you focus on expands. That's expectancy theory. If I focus on all the things that could go wrong, think about a golfer. If I'm thinking, ooh, I could hit it in the drink, or don't slice. I mean, don't slice is like thinking, don't think about a pink elephant with blue running shoes. If somebody says, don't think about a pink elephant with blue running shoes, inevitably you think about some form or fashion, the pink elephant with weird blue running shoes. So the brain is built actually to lose focus on high performance or attentional, the appropriate or effective thoughts for high performance. Now, if you're going to overcome that biology, which we can, you want to be sensitive to a couple of things. Number one, you must realize you're going to have to train for mental toughness. It is not a pep talk. And this is where most people, and I even feel like most people in my field, they really still look at mental training, or mental toughness as a pep talk. And I never have, thankfully. I mean, I think I learned enough about the brain as I was working through my doctorate that I realized, okay, the brain's not built to think the right way under performance conditions. So just like your bicep, if you want the bicep to be strong, you got to do the exercises, the training that will make the bicep able to actually respond and be strong. Same is true for your brain. With proper mental training, we can train the right focus points. We can find the attentional focus and make it so that it's easier, more natural, under pressure, under performance conditions, to maintain those attentional thoughts. And I created something, and I did this in my first book, and I think it's really the reason I had such great success right off the bat as a sports psychologist, is this thing called the mental workout. And I won't go into the details of it, but for the professional athlete, it was a 3-minute training process where it's 5 steps long. And if you go through the 5 steps, you really can't stop the brain from having more of that attentional focus. All right. So the first piece I want you to be sensitive to, and the listeners, is mental toughness is not a pep talk. It requires training. It's neuroplasticity. We can actually change the patterning of what's normal in our brains. The second piece, and this goes to attentional focus, you think, okay, and this is, I think, where people in the business world and in real life are making major mistakes. And it's also happening in the sports world. We're trying to focus on so many things that we're unable to actually focus on the most important things. You've heard people talk about prioritizing your actions, prioritizing your thoughts, doing what's most important. Most people don't know how many things we can actually prioritize from a mental standpoint. And there is a real science on this. It's called channel capacity. It's the science of the biological bandwidth of the human brain. And the magic numbers, and people aren't going to like this, but the magic numbers with channel capacity are 3 and 1. Meaning I can keep in working memory. So think about that attentional focus. If I'm out, whether it be trying to compete through a round of golf, if I'm a pitcher and I'm trying to get through the first 5 innings of a game, if I'm a quarterback and I'm trying to lead my team to a victory, If I'm out there trying to perform and I have more than 3 focus points in that attentional focus, I'm going to overload channel capacity. And when we overload channel capacity, we lose focus completely. I want to give you an analogy. It's a bit like juggling. I can juggle. I can actually juggle 3 balls. I'm not a great juggler, but I can juggle 3 balls. But Joe, if you threw me a 4th one in, I promise you, I'm going to drop all.
I'm the
And
same way. I learned to juggle when I was a kid, and it's like I never got to 4,
yeah,
and it's like I can impress my daughters for about 2 minutes.
well, and think about how many people, how many times a day are you trying to hold more than 4 concepts in your mind at once?
Mm.
And here's a perfect example of when you know you've overloaded channel capacity. Have you ever forgotten something, Joe?
Oh, many times.
Have you ever forgotten something that you thought, there's no way I can forget this? I don't need to write it down. It's just way too important. Of course. And with these phones these days and with the media, everybody is overloading channel capacity. So back to the answer to the question, which I know is really getting long now. Mental toughness must be trained, and you must respect channel capacity with attentional focus in the training. In your training and that mental workout. And this is why when I work with people, there's tools like performance statements. And the performance statement is, during performance, what are your at most? And you don't need to get all 3, but people just really struggle even keeping it at 3. But what are your 3 at most important focus points? So a pitcher might say, weight back, arm on top, pound down. It's actually a Cy Young pitcher from when I was with the Cardinals. And if he can just, when he's out there, not let himself focus on the scoreboard or necessarily the person he's up against and what the guy did to him last time out or some of the stuff going on at home. But instead, if he can just think, weight back, arm on top, pound down. And then if in his mental training, he's training his mind to only focus on those 2 or 3 items during performance, that's when you see people start to rise to the top and start to have that mental advantage over the competition.
How does that interact with, like, I'm thinking about like the power of habit, where it's like, if this person's training so much where they then almost intuitively, now those 3 things are just part of one gesture. Is having things be habit either as a team or as an individual, does that then allow for more of that capacity for other things to come in?
No, and that's where people really try to cheat channel capacity. That's where you kind of get that perfectionist mentality. And as you said, you're moving the goalposts. And that's a big mistake. So, like, I try to give you an example. One of the things, again, honoring channel capacity, it's a little bit different than the mental training we're talking about. It's more of just what behaviors, how many actions can on a daily basis I really be focused on. And most people will start their day with a to-do list of 15 things. And what they'll typically do is they'll look at the 15 and they'll say, okay, there's 4, 5, or 6 that are really easy. I can just check those off early and get them done. And then what happens is a person starts with the easy stuff, but never gets the important stuff done. And that's really that skill of prioritizing. This time, instead of thought, it's prioritizing actions. So instead of allowing people to do that, what I do with all my clients, say it's okay to have 15 items on your to-do list. But before you start checking anything off, I want you to pick your 3 most important. And of the 3, what's the one? And the first 30 minutes of the day, you can't work on anything other than those 3 most important. And if you get those 3 most important done, which most people, they can get their 3 most important done usually between 45 and 55 minutes, then you can pick another 3 and chip away at it. But if you get 3 things done in any one given day, but they're your 3 most important things, you will find, especially over extended periods of time, you will be so much more advanced if you're working the other side of that to-do list. I'm getting 10 things done, but none of them are my 3 most important. The 3 most important will trump the 10 lesser important. Stephen Covey talked about this, the urgent versus the important. I love this quote. He said, the noise of the urgent creates the illusion of importance. But anyway, I think back to answer your question, if we want to form habits, the best way to do it is to really respect channel capacity and honor those numbers of 3 and 1, because we can consistently be focused on 3 and 1 over time. And it makes it easier to form habits. It's when I'm trying to do all this stuff and I'm trying to think about all those different things, it's really hard to form a positive habit because it's shifting so much. And a major piece, probably the single most major piece of habit formation, is repetition and reinforcement. Meaning you have to repeat the activity, but then the activity has to reinforce itself with the desired result. And if we're shifting different actions daily and we're shifting different ways of thinking or attentional focus, it's going to be really, really difficult to get any real sense of repetition. And you're going to see that the results are going to suffer as well.
Mm. I know we only have a couple minutes left. One of the last questions I have is, what does this look like in your own life? Like, what are your either daily, weekly, quarterly habits? How do you apply this personally?
So I feel like I'm a master of channel capacity. I think it has really, really served me well in life. I've taught all my children. I noticed, you've written a book about a 4-day work week. I love that. I guarantee I haven't read the book, but I guarantee in your research, in your writing, you're using channel capacity. You may not have known the name or the science necessarily, but you're teaching people that you can actually do more in much less time if you're working that skill of prioritizing. And remember, you can't prioritize everything, but you can prioritize 3 things. So in my life, I'm really good every day. I know what they're my process goals, my 3 most important activities are. And then I love this little, Tony Robbins gave me this a number of years ago. And every day I write down, I say, what 3 things have I done well? See that number 3. I answer 1 to 10, how well have I done on my 3 most important activities for the day? What's 1 thing I want to improve tomorrow? And what's 1 action step I can help to make that improvement? And I've got, hundreds and hundreds of entries in here over the last, I think I started this when did he give me this book? 2010, 2017. What I call the success log is really helpful at really keeping me focused on just the channel capacity or the things that I can manage, what are most important. And then I do a mental workout, my own version. In the sports world, it's a 3-minute. For me, it's a 2-minute and 10-second. For people in the business world, that mental workout, I can get it done in 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So I'm training my mind on a daily basis to focus on the most important things.
Mm. So awesome. Well, Jason, the last question that I always ask is, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I said this before we started. My parents were both in the field. They were both counselors. My dad specialized in youth and my mother with elderly. And so I know the importance and the impact that therapists can make on someone's lives. And I guess, there's 2 things I would really suggest. I learned this from the great Irvin Yalom. Yalom said, it's the relationship that heals. It's the relationship that heals. It's the relationship that heals. And I think as a therapist, maybe sometimes we forget the impact of us just loving and caring for our clients has. When a therapist is in a room with someone and they share their dark secrets, and we can actually still love them, honestly, still respect them, and realize, look, we're all human. We all have our own bag of trouble. And so your bag is, whether it be worse or not as bad, or no judgment on who's worse or better, whatnot, but just that we all have our trouble and then still love them in spite of it. I don't think it gets as much importance as it should. I think that's really, really important for the client. So just remember Yalom's words. It's the relationship that heals. It's the relationship that heals. The relationship that heals. And then my other piece that I think was really important for me was decide on your 1 thing. Like, really figure out as a clinician, what is that 1 thing you want to be best in the world at? Mm. For me, it was self-confidence. I wanted to help people with self-confidence. But whatever it is, do the research and become fanatical about making sure the people you work with are better at that than others because of your commitment and passion at being the best at that one thing.
Mm, so amazing. I have 3 pages of notes here. I'm going to go back and listen to your journal entry thing right at the end. Dr. Jason Selk, where can people find you? Where can they follow your work? Where can they hire you for keynotes?
Probably easiest place is the website. I've got, like you said, 5 books that are out there, but the website, jasonselk.com. We try to, we're trying not to sell. We're trying to give. I've been really fortunate in my work that we've done really well financially. And so it's as much right now about, can we just give to people? Can we give to people? Now, again, I'm not doing the actual work for free, but we're trying to give as many of these tips and tools and techniques away as possible because life is hard. Joe, life is hard. And I think it's harder, that there's a shooting at Florida State today. And, it's just, I think our young people are under a lot of pressure. I think our older people are under a lot of pressure. And so if we can all just help each other out, I think that's a really, really good way for us to move this situation we're in forward. JasonSelk.com. If there's ever anything I can do for people, please reach out and try to do everything we can to help.
So awesome. Well, we will put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Joe, it was a pleasure. Keep doing the work you're doing. I know you're making an impact.
As we listen to this series today and over the future weeks, it's interesting because I'm doing so many of these interviews, kind of back to back over a couple week period of time. And, when I see these consistent messages from people of finding an area, I've heard The One Thing so many times, and it makes me think of Jay Papasan and Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, which I always recommend. Jay became a friend through TEDx and all of that. So as you listen to these episodes, I hope you, the listener, takes action. I hope that you find that balance between consuming and taking action. Just like when we eat, we eat food, and if we just consume, it doesn't do anything. We have to take it and turn that into energy. Take this podcast and have that be the food and turn it into the energy to help your private practice. And if you need some help with that, we have our membership community that is just for you, no matter your phase of practice, over at practiceofthepractice.com/membership. You can read all about the different tracks that we have, whether you're in solo or mega group. We've got a track for you. We also couldn't do this show without amazing sponsors like Therapy Notes. Therapy Notes is the best electronic health records out there. They will help you switch over from your current EHR. They also give you 2 months for free or just money off if you use promo code Joe at checkout. They are phenomenal. They help with automated billing. It's going to make it easier to outsource your billing. So many reasons to switch to Therapy Notes. Just head on over to therapynotes.com, read about it, and at checkout, just use promo code Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music. And this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.